Welcome to the stunning Grand Wailea Resort. Here we are for the 2025 SMACNA Annual Convention. And I am delighted to be joined by Andy Phelps, Vice President over at Barnes Dodge. And from a place, he's a kind of a former fellow Kansas native.
Yes.
It's good to see one of us out in the wild as always.
We're everywhere.
We are everywhere. It's fantastic. Go Chiefs. Andy, you are at the forefront of one of the emerging topics, conversations in our space. You are knee deep in working on the construction of EV factories, and that's going to be the heart of your session that you're presenting here at the convention. Go into detail of just some of the pertinent issues you're facing right now and what you want to get out to the attendees.
Current EV market in the United States is about 10% of all the autos produced, which is about 15 million. So about 1.5 million of those are EV vehicles. And in terms of battery capacity, that equates to about 100 gigawatt hours a year, roughly. A lot of the facilities that are being built are out there to support a large amount of expansion in that space. For example, the facility that is in the Kansas City area has an initial capacity of 23 gigawatt hours. Mm-hmm. And I think they've got the capacity to double that in their facility in the future. But I think that with all the push into electric vehicles, this is something that we're not just going to see here in Kansas City. You're going to see it in all areas of the country.
And how can SMACNA contractors help kind of build that capacity? Because I know the EV marketplace is a little unsteady, focus shift, but it seems like it's eventually going to speed back up again once kind of more of the infrastructure. How can our contractors kind of help meet future demand out there? Like, what kind of skills do we bring to the table that you think are unique?
Yeah, so there's no doubt that SMACNA contractors are very well poised to do this work. We're the only ones that have the organized labor force in the sheet metal space to be able to support these large projects. For example, the one that I was part of, there was probably around 10 signatory HVAC contractors. And in terms of sheet metal workers, you're talking 200 to 300 at least on a single job site, which is huge.
And like having that skilled labor force at our disposal just can make a big time difference. Do you think there's beyond EV factories, which I think is the battery factories, to take it beyond like electric vehicles for other applications? Like what kind of other applications do you think could be out there?
I think that what you'll see is actually in my presentation, we're going to talk about some of the batteries that are produced. And what you might think about is that you've got this large car and there's just this large battery that just sits somewhere in the bottom of it, almost like you would have on an RC car when we were growing up, right? But these batteries that are produced, they're actually small individual modules that then get packaged and repackaged into larger battery sets that can be used for a variety of different vehicles. And
how has the technology evolved over the past 5-10 years? Because obviously companies like Tesla and the other major automakers have really kind of taken this to the forefront. How's that kind of technology evolved? Because I'm one of those folks that actually just always thought it was like one large battery, but like how things evolved and how have our contractors really helped to foster that innovation?
Well, some of the evolution that's occurred has been in the lithium-ion battery space. So those batteries that you didn't see around 20, 25 years ago is actually what's driving a lot of these EV vehicles. And so as more technology gets developed around them, we're at a point right now where we've got commercial viability in electric vehicles, that something that when I was growing up was only being discussed as a future item, and now that future is here. And since it's here, you're going to see more and more advancements in that space to hopefully the point where we're not just talking about 200 and 250 miles per charge. We're talking more and more than that. And I think that once those values get higher, you're going to see a lot more adoption.
And do you think it's more of the charging infrastructure that's kind of slowing the growth, or do you think it is the kind of the range challenges, or is it both? Just what do you kind
I think it's a little bit of both. I think that people are hesitant to buy something that doesn't provide the range that they would want, or might require them to hang out a little bit longer on a long road trip to recharge and refuel. But I think that as that network does increase, it's just bound to build upon itself.
And how amazing is it through your career that you've just seen this evolution happen, like just before your eyes? Like you talked about where we were about 10, 15 years ago, we were looking at certain capacity. Now we're having the conversation about different capacity. Like what's it like just to watch this through the entirety of the career and then being in a spot to like where you have your hands deep in this marketplace?
I think it's interesting because it's gone from science fiction to reality relatively quickly. And you're actually seeing that investment. You're seeing these things pay off. And that's what's important. And that's what's really neat to see.
If you had any advice for SMACNA contractors that wanted to start really investing in the infrastructure to get into this line of work, what would be your best advice you could probably give them?
I think that the best advice is that these facilities take a lot of logistics and planning. The ability to just send some stuff to the job site and put it up, that MO doesn't work on a mega project. You've got to have your supply chain network in place to where you can support large numbers of individuals and a lot of duct. And the ductwork isn't small, it's huge. And you have a huge logistical challenge to get to that material to the job site. Most of these facilities are built near metro areas, but they may not necessarily be in a metro area. So you're going to look at trying to get millions and millions of pounds of metal out to a suburban or even rural area that creates some challenges, quite frankly.
I'll give a great example of that Panasonic facility you mentioned. How far is that from city center of Kansas City?
It's essentially right on the city center edge.
Yeah.
It's within Johnson County, which is in the Kansas City metro area. It's in a city called DeSoto, which is just on the western side of Johnson County. And it's got farm fields all around it. And but it's also seen a lot of growth in that area. It's rather amazing to see.
It is amazing. Like I was just up there a few weeks ago, and I hadn't really been that much up there since about the last 30 years. And I'm driving through Jackson County, and I'm just like stunned. So it's crazy that those type of large scale projects are really emerging in an area that I always just thought was a bunch of farm fields, to your example.
Right.
And it's just, what do you think the next steps are? You talked about improving like the capacity and the battery, but in terms of like what, going back to the advice part a little bit, but talking about what do you think the next level of skills that our contractors need to adopt to basically remain competitive, well, beyond competitive, at the leading edge of this? I think we are at the leading edge of this. We're not just competitive, we are leading the field.
I think so. And I think that one of the things that they can start to do is to market themselves once they have that experience that, hey, we're able to do these large facilities. We're able to work with complex teams on timeframes that a lot of times have some pretty stringent requirements, especially if it's tied to any federal funding, that they're going to set deadlines for production of whether it be batteries or modules out of that facility by certain dates. And so it's a race to that production, and that makes for a very complex project.
Complex, but definitely exciting. I think this is the, like I said, leading edge, the absolute leading edge. Andy, this has been tremendous. I think this is going to be one of the more informational sessions folks are going to watch, and hopefully the folks that are here in Hawaii that they'll be able to attend. But thank you so much for joining us. This has been an exciting conversation.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thanks
Appreciate
a lot.
it.